Okay, this is an introduction to a series of lectures in mini video format, 5 to 10 minutes only, for each stage of the production of a rapport de stage, which is largely a piece of research that you are going to be doing as part of your MICI program. So let's talk about research first and then talk about the process. Well, what on earth is research? Well, if you think about it, if you've got as far as M1, M2, you're already doing research, because every question we set, every exam we give you, every assignment that you do, you are launching out into the unknown. And in launching out into the unknown, you are trying to find out things, the answers to the questions that we've asked you that you don't know. Well, essentially, that's what research is. Launching out into the unknown. So panic about the word research as if it's something that only the experts are doing and suddenly it's something radically different. It isn't. If you think about it, you're doing it now in your assignments. There's a little bit of a difference when you go to do research as part of your work on a mission in a rapport de stage, a placement report. And here it is. What we're trying to do with that is you're selecting a topic and a title that you actually want to do. It's a question that intrigues you. It's a problem that the company really needs solved. It's a prognosis of the future made into a hypothesis that you are going to test whether these conditions exist and produce that result. So you're launching out into the unknown, but it's the unknown for you and for your company. It might be very well known to other people. So you start with a big question or a problem, and it's all in the unknown to you. But your first duty is to not waste your time, not reinvent the wheel. It's to go logically and look in the library, online, in the company's archive, whatever it happens to be, what already exists that would help you answer this question and solve this problem. There's perhaps quite a lot that is already known. So your first port of call in research terms is to do a review of the literature, a literature review, which is otherwise called secondary research. Why secondary? Well, primary research is what you do. Ironically, secondary research is what other people do, but as far as you're concerned, it comes first, because you go and look at that to find out what it is that is already known. Now, once you've done that, obviously, you'll find that that's what you wanted to know. That's what's in your title. And this is what is clearly already known, tested, proven, and accepted. But what about this bit? Well, that's what you still don't know. So that is what you've got to go and find out by doing primary research and organizing yourself to fill this gap. That's essentially what research is. But what's the big picture? Why are we doing research in the first place? Is it just to say, well, I answered the question? Well, no, actually it's not. It's to add to the sum total of knowledge on a subject. And why do we want to do that? Knowledge is power. You've heard that before. Power to do what? Power to change the world or your corner of it in the company. That's the important bit. And if you can change it, you can improve it. And if you can improve this product, this process, this system, whatever it happens to be that you're looking at, then maybe your company can be more economical, more effective, more efficient, more equitable. All of the things that we want to be. So that's why we do it. It's not just to tie you in knots and imagine yourself in a white coat in a research laboratory. Perish the thought. It's actually about finding things out that we need so that we can change and improve our corner of the world. And in commercial terms, that usually means something that's simpler, easier, quicker, less complicated, is delivering more success than ever before, possibly with less money, and generating more profit. That's why we do it. That's what I call the research baby. You're going to have to do a lot of labor and go through a lot of contractions to deliver this research baby. It's actually well summed up by my old university, Bournemouth University, in their crest, their emblazon, which has the usual sort of picture. And then underneath it, it has 3 words in Latin: discere mutari est. To learn is to change. We're doing research so we can learn. Once we've learned, we have a capability that if we apply it to a particular system and process, we can change it, and we can change it for the better. So that's what you've got to think you're involved in. But remember, in one sense, you are already doing it. All of your assignments have been voyages into that unknown, so that the change goes on here. You understand more. You are therefore more capable of using that understanding, applying that understanding, and doing something with it to improve a situation in the future, in your personal life, in your professional life, maybe even in your political life. So that's essentially what it is. Now I need to move on to what in my intro to research lectures I called the driven process. In other words, there is a logic behind research that you really can't escape. The big problem with research for many people is that they get lost in it. They don't know quite where it's going or how it's going to get there. They don't need to know, they don't know what to do next when they've completed something. Now, I'm now going to give you something, if I can mess around with my menu here to do an Acron partage. This is linked off my website, but I'm sort of going to talk through it. Okay, so you record things you're interested in, the company talks to you about your missions, you see problems for the company, you come up with your title. Now, clearly, your title needs to be broken down into what I call bite-sized chunks, and that title needs to have a set of aims and objectives. So if you do this and this and this and this and this and this and this, then you will have dealt with 100% of the scope of your title, not 150 and certainly not 80. You do 150, you're wasting your time. You do 80, you haven't done what you promised to do. So these aims and objectives, you then need to ask yourself the question, as I said a minute ago, well, what do we already know? What is already known? What has already been written about, used, tried, tested, and accepted? So that's where you go to the internet, you go to your company archive, you go to your library, and you start asking yourself those questions. And for each of those aims and objectives, you need to find out what we do know, what we still don't know, and be able to say exactly what it is that you will need to find out to be able to cover all of those aims and objectives. So you do that for each aim and objective, and at the end, you have a hit list of things you need to know. Put another way, that is the target, or those are the targets for your primary research. It's what I've called here the primary research requirement. Now, the stuff that you need to know may be in all sorts of different forms. Some of it may be locked into people's heads. Some of it may be very quantitative, figures. Some of it may be qualitative, often the answer to the awkward question, why? Why do you think that? Why didn't you like our product? How would you like us to change it so that it becomes more acceptable and more attractive to you? Well, those different type of questions need a different type of survey approach to generate the information that you are missing. You need to read up about that, and you need to be able to write a methodology. You can't just say, well, I was missing this, so I did that. I might be able to think of lots of things that are far better that you could and should have done. So you need, before you start actively doing the research, to be able to look at all the possibilities that you have for doing research. Do I send out a questionnaire? Do I send it out by post? Do I send it out by email? Do I use an online questionnaire service? Do I go and talk to people? Do I observe people in a group situation? Do I interview people? What exactly do I do? What is the best way of generating the most reliable and statistically valid information that I need to close the gap? So please, 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 students often miss this very important point out, because if you don't get good quality information that closes the gap, then your recommendations are going to be difficult to depend upon. If you are a manager, the manager says, well, why didn't you do that? Wouldn't that have been far better? Oh, I didn't think about that. So you must write a methodology. And in that, you will need to think, obviously, about the design of your questionnaire or the design of an interview or semi-structured interview. The one drives the other. So then clearly the next thing is you have to go and do the survey. You have to go and acquire your data. And you've got it all in a bag, electronic or physical. You need then to be able to present that information, to interpret and explain it, to analyze it, and to evaluate just what is the significance of this information. What is it telling us? Is it in fact a complete answer to the thing that we were looking for to close the gap for objective 4 or whatever it is? So this is going to be quite a big chapter, and the challenge for you is going to be finding the right structure for that. You could do it thematically. If themes emerge from the literature, you could perhaps organize it around that, or you could stick with what your research gap is, or what the aims and objectives themselves are, and present the data under each one of those. It's up to you, but it's got to be clear. Fine, so you've presented, analyzed, and evaluated your data. What do you need to do now? Well, this is the point at which synthesis takes place. You're about to take a deep breath and say, well, when I look at everything I've done to fill in these gaps, what does it give me? What is the story that it is actually saying? Are we finding out that we're not performing as well as we really thought we were? We're not doing as well as we could do. There were certain things in the process that were not well done and need to be changed. So those are the conclusions that you draw. They have to be legitimate conclusions that rest upon the evidence. Okay, so you've concluded this isn't actually so good. I strongly suggest you do not a conclusions and recommendations chapter, but a conclusions chapter and then a separate recommendations chapter. Why? Because they are not synonyms for one another, those two words. Recommendations start where the conclusions end. They are what you could and should, must do, what you propose that your employer should put in place. Because you've found out a lot, you know a lot, you've learned a lot, and now you can change a lot for the company to improve things, to make it more profitable, etc., as I explained earlier. So you now need to say what those things are, and don't just leave it like that. Oh, someone should do this, this, and this. You know the company. You know its systems, you know its processes, you know the people, you know the power base, you know the type of budget. You should be able to say here exactly what you want the company to do and you believe it really should do and how it should go about doing it. Now, the danger with this is the recommendations come right at the end when you're very stuck for time. You're stuck for your word limit as well on your project, but you must not cut this out. This is the research baby. So far, all you've had is labor pains and then the conclusions of the contractions, if you like. Now you're about to deliver the baby. It's got to be perfectly formed as a baby, fully developed. So don't quit out on it and take the, well, somebody should do something about this approach. You are in the position to say what you believe should be done, to justify why you believe that, and to suggest how it should be done. Why is that particularly important? That's where we see you. That's where we see your master's worthiness. So far, you've been looking at existing information, gathering information through your primary research. Here, we see your creativity, your ability to apply that, your ability to exploit it, your ability to make change happen in a positive way for your employer. You must not quit out on that. So that's what I've called the driven process. Each one of these stages drives the next towards an endpoint, which are your recommendations that solve the problem, answer the question in full, or prove or disprove the hypothesis. Okay, there we go. That is the end of my introduction. After this, I'm essentially taking you through each and every one of those stages of that process, which I've called the driven process here, in a series of mini video lectures, a little shorter than this one. There are 11 of them. At each stage, look at the next one and make sure that you're following these instructions, which are also either express or implicit in your livre de stage. Okay, there we go. Enjoy the series of videos, and I sincerely hope they help you. And if you're a MICI student, please do remember you can always go back to the more detailed stuff I've got in my intro to research section on Tonyversity. Okay, thank you and very good luck. Bye.